What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. So today is going to be a different video, as you can see from the title, and this is a video I have been wanting to make for the longest time, but at the same time I've been putting it off for a while now just because it's a very vulnerable video and transparent video that it's sometimes hard for me to talk about, and just the fact that putting it on YouTube makes me scared. But at the same time, if it could help someone and encourage someone, it would be very well worth it. So yeah, as you can see this from the title of this video, I'm gonna share my journey with vertigo. And yeah, let's just get started. I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you like when I first had a vertigo spell and then kind of like an update until now. So this is going to be a long video. Go ahead and grab a snack, grab a drink, grab a meal or something, because this is going to be a long one. So the first time I had a vertigo spell, I was actually 11 years old, and I remember I was actually in 5th grade. I was just working on some schoolwork. It was like quiet time, I think. I mean, not quiet time, but it happened to be quiet because we were just working on some work for the day. I think my teacher was letting us, like our class, work on homework or something for the day. I don't exactly know, but I remember just out of nowhere feeling super dizzy, and I just was so confused. I didn't know what to do, and so first instincts, I got up right away and told my teacher that I was dizzy. And so yep, he called in one of the students, another female student, and she helped me get down the stairs. For some reason, I don't remember if he did that initially, but all I remember is that I remember walking out into the hallway and just closing my eyes and standing there for a few minutes because I couldn't go downstairs. And so I don't know if he called someone down after he had seen that or whatnot, but I remember standing there for quite a while. And I remember being embarrassed simply because at my school, I don't know if this is how all junior highs work, you switch classes, and so it was a smaller school, and so like the students would line up in each classrooms and whatnot, and so people saw me and I just had my eyes closed, chilling on the wall with literally leaning on the wall. And so I mean, obviously you would have imagined someone thought I was sick. And so I remember being brought to the office. I don't really remember the blur. I just remember actually puking when my mom finally picked me up that day in the school parking lot. Yeah, so fun. And so that spell, that's all I really remember from that spell. Fast forward to like maybe 7th grade. I remember feeling so dizzy that I stayed home from school, and I remember missing a basketball game. So I was so dizzy. I don't remember like the details of that particular spell, but I remember having those spells within my few years of junior high. And I guess I was in 5th grade, so that's not junior high, from my first spell. Fast forward to high school, I remember my freshman year was okay. I think my sophomore year is when I started to have spells again, at least more debilitating spells. I was in the middle of a midterm. The middle of a midterm. I remember it was my English midterm right before Christmas break, and I was almost done with the midterm. I was in the essay portion. I knew the material very well, so it's nothing that like I just like panicked or whatnot, because I was actually pretty chill and I wasn't even that stressed out. But anyways, I just remember, this is actually the time I remember visually seeing dizziness, if that makes sense. Because when I experience dizziness, it's not always like everything around you is spinning. Most of the time it's you feel like everything's spinning, not seeing everything spinning, if that makes sense. If you have vertigo, that will make sense. So yeah, I specifically remember this time. I don't remember if the first time I actually experienced vertigo, if it was spinning, like visual spinning. I think it actually might have been. But for sure, I remember during my midterm, I looked up and the person across me was like spinning, and I called my teacher, told her I was dizzy. I don't remember if she helped me down to the office. I'm pretty sure she did. And I just remember just waiting down in the nurse's office until my mom got me, and of course puked again. I remember that spell pretty well, simply because this is gonna sound gross. I remember puking on my bed, and my dizziness was so bad I could not move my head. Like, lifting my head or moving my head just made it worse, that I didn't even let my mom clean my throw up. It was horrible, actually. And the smell of my throw up, this is TMI, was cinnamon toast crunch. For years I did not eat that cereal, not because it was nasty, it was because I had to smell that and taste that in my mouth for hours, and I literally was so bad that I couldn't be moved, or I couldn't have her clean it because I really couldn't move. It just, at that moment, it was best to just remain still, not moving, in silence, and I'd rather lay in my puke than my dizziness get worse. And so obviously eventually a few hours later I was able to get up, go to the bathroom, and get rid of those sheets. But yeah, I just remember it getting really bad, and I'm pretty sure that's the time when that happened. I really don't remember many of my dizzy spells in high school. I remember having still vertigo spells. I remember being in the theater. I don't know if there was some sort of class meeting or something, and just out of nowhere feeling dizzy, and I just closed my eyes and took a few deep breaths. I think that went away. That rarely happens though, that I feel really dizzy and it just goes away. So as you can tell from my stories, my spells from when I was younger would only come maybe a few times a year, not nearly as bad. It was more manageable. I don't really remember towards the end of my high school years how bad it got. I remember my senior year I was always sick. My immune system was the worst. I did have bad vertigo, but I just don't remember. It just seems like a blur to me. Fast forward to college. For college, what did I do for college? I went to college for a semester and a half, and I decided to take a break from college. And then a year and a half later, I was working for about a year and a half until I decided to go back to college. And within that year and a half, I'm trying to think. Oh, I remember experiencing a dizzy spell while I was working, and oh my goodness, it was the worst. And so I called in sick, and I felt like my manager, no, she did, made me feel bad for taking the day off, and I felt bad because I didn't want to take the day off if I could. And so I remember actually going into work once my dizziness had subsided, and I was continuing to go on with my work day, and I was with a client, and I just out of nowhere got really dizzy. I had to sit down, and actually that day my dad had to pick me up from work. I think he actually took me to work that day, and yeah, that was just me pushing myself. And so yeah, those spells were pretty bad. They weren't the worst spells I've had, but enough to be not functioning, I guess. And so those are the spells I remember from that. Fast forward to when I went away for college, I actually moved across the country. And so I was out on my own, and this is the first time actually I moved out of my home that I grew up in and away from my parents. And I was almost 3,000 miles away from home. And so you can imagine I was actually pretty nervous because one, I didn't know anyone. I wasn't familiar with the area, and the state I went in, I went to a different part of it on vacation back when I was in first grade. Lo and behold, I ended up there, and yeah, that's a different story. I'm gonna stop rambling on my college experience. But my freshman year, technically, of that school, I did have dizzy spells, but not nearly as debilitating that it had been, puking and not being able to get up. I would have to lay down, but it was not nearly as bad as the previous years, at least from high school and grade school. So that was manageable until my sophomore year came, and that's where it was a game changer. And so Actually, that was about right now 4 years ago. So I'm gonna go on and talk about this portion of my life, and this is how it affects me on a day-to-day basis, I guess. This video was not like, there's no outline that I made, so I'm just kind of like telling you guys based on my memory. My sophomore year at school, I was starting to feel nauseous every day, and I remember, actually, take that back. I remember I was studying for a midterm, and it was like the morning of the midterm. The midterm was at noon. It was like maybe 2 hours before. And I set aside of time to study, just to look over my notes before my midterm, and I just remember feeling so dizzy out of nowhere. And I was panicking. Well, I was low-key panicking because I was like, I have a midterm soon. And it was one of my stricter professors, and so I was super like scared. And so what I did, I turned off the lights, I closed my eyes, I took my medicine, I believe at the time, and nothing was subsiding, and I was panicking. I didn't know what to do because I didn't know if I was gonna fail this final, because I missed it, because some professors will fail you if you miss your final. Thankfully, I emailed my professor. I guess he didn't get it, but one of my friends who was in that class she knows that I experienced vertigo, and so I texted her what had happened, and I guess he ended up finding the email. But yeah, and thankfully I was very surprised of how gracious he was towards me. He wanted me to take it right away, but I had mentioned that whenever I have vertigo spells, like, I'm out for days, and so I try to take it as soon as possible, like maybe 2 or 3 days later. And so yeah, I don't even remember. I don't even remember what happened to that. But yeah, that was a blur. So that was like that was the beginning of the madness of having constant and dizzy spells. After that, I remember just feeling nauseous all the time and reoccurrent vertigo spells. And this is when it started, because what was wrong with this situation was that when I had them previously, I'd have it for like 3-4 days, be out, and then I could function in normal life. The problem of this, after this spell, was that I was beginning to feel nauseous on a daily basis, and my spells were coming back to me. And yeah, that was really rough. Yeah, they didn't seem to subside. I didn't know what to do at that point. I wasn't at my like normal doctor, obviously, because I was halfway across the country, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to deal with it. I had meds. I don't know what else I had. I had meds. I like ate a lot of ginger to help my nausea, but I didn't know what to do. And I was barely keeping up with my schoolwork. I was able to go to my classes and stuff, but I was just so discouraged, and I didn't know what to do at that point, because I was starting to get frequent dizzy spells, and I don't actually know how I managed. But one day I was like, this is enough. Like, I really need to get this checked. So I went to urgent care, and because I didn't have a family practice doctor in the state I was in, because I was at school, and at urgent care, they were not helpful at all. I was like so discouraged after I left. They were basically telling me like I have a cold, like it couldn't be from a cold, and they prescribed me Sudafed, which is a cold medicine, and they thought my dizziness were a result of a cold. Oh my goodness. Of course I listened, because I was like, okay, but I wasn't convinced that that was the actual problem. And I did it anyways, because at that point I didn't know what to do. Oh my goodness. The Sudafed like messed me up. I just, I was like, okay, forget it. And I was like, this sucks, basically. And I didn't know what to do, so I had to wait basically until I got home. I could have gotten a doctor near school, but I just kind of like pushed through the semester feeling the way I did every day. I would puke pretty frequently. I basically made it by somehow with just eating a ton of ginger stuff, eating a bunch of ginger, drinking ginger tea, ginger pills, you name it. I tried a lot of natural remedies, and I just waited until I got home, because I was like, okay, this urgent care didn't help me. And also, I forgot to mention, guys, I know this is like scatterbrained and all over the place. When I had vertigo in high school, my doctors would prescribe me meclizine to help with the nausea. There's not really necessarily medicine for dizziness, but yeah, meclizine was what they prescribed and basically knocks you out for hours upon hours. And so that's what they use, and that's what I was using. If I'm not mistaken, I still had a prescription of meclizine. And throughout high school, that was the same thing. I never had like an actual diagnosis of anything. I remember my doctor having me for a period of time take allergy medicine because she might have thought it was like seasonal allergies. The reason why, yeah, it just didn't make sense. And nothing was adding up. So obviously, like, I didn't really do anything about it because those spells weren't happening frequent enough to like be super worried about. And obviously, my doctor wasn't that worried, I guess, if you can say, because it's not like she referred me to anyone. And so, actually, so that was like the backstory. I forgot to mention that. I'm sorry. Okay, so fast forward to my sophomore year, Christmas break. I, decided that I was going to go back to the doctor, which I did. The same doctor I had been going to since I was a pretty young kid. And the same doctor I started going to from like 11th, when I was 11. Yeah, I was going to the same doctor. And, she continued to give me meclizine, and then actually she gave me a referral to see a ears, nose, and throat doctor. And so I saw an ears, nose, and throat doctor, and it always takes a while to get in with a specialist. Thankfully, before I went back to school that break, I was able to get an appointment. And so I saw the doctor, everything was normal, my hearing was normal, all the tests that you could possibly have were normal. And he basically told me nothing was wrong with me. I was like, are you kidding me? I was like so discouraged at that point because in my head I was like, are you kidding? Like, I was kind of like really sad because you're gonna tell me nothing is wrong with me when I always experience dizziness and nausea. And so he basically said like there's nothing wrong, which maybe he said it a little nicer, but he low-key basically said it. And so what he told me though was that we're gonna do an MRI, make sure everything's okay, blah blah blah. Got an MRI, everything was clear. There was nothing to do from there. I didn't know where to move from there. And so went back to school that semester. I was able to function and do school, and I think I remember only missing school maybe once or twice. Yeah, I think I missed school like once or twice specifically because of my vertigo. And I remember telling one of my teachers about it because I didn't realize how serious it was, I guess. One of my teachers about it, and I got a 0 on my project, which was bogus because, anyways, that's just me being better. I got a 0 on my project basically because I didn't show up to class because I was dizzy. And anyways, fast forward to that, I kind of lost my faith in doctors for a little bit, just because I'd gone to the doctor, like to my family doctor on a regular basis, and they were basically doing nothing about it and not really helping me find answers, I feel. And so, and I just didn't know where to turn, like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't think to, like, change doctors or research and blah, blah, blah until, like, later on, obviously. And so, fast forward to summer break, and about had enough of feeling dizzy and sick, and it was not even nearly as bad, but I was still feeling nauseous and still having spells. It just wasn't like as severe as the past, but it was pretty bad still. And so my doctor referred me to a neurologist, and so I was like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna go to the neurologist, see how this feel it out, willing to try whatever he had to try for me. And so he told me, like, I met with him, I told him my symptoms and blah, blah, blah. I will say, like, throughout all of this, when you have vertigo and, like, one of the beginning steps of, like, having it, I guess it's hard to, like, describe how you're feeling. I feel like that's how I was for the majority of, like, the 2 years of, like, wandering, I guess, if you want to say. I just didn't know how to describe how I felt. Well, obviously, besides, like, dizziness, I couldn't really tell my other symptoms to the full extent if that meant. But I think that's just personally me. I have brain fog. I have just trouble expressing what my symptoms are, I guess, or like describing how they feel, I should say. And so when I saw this neurologist, I had told him I was dizzy and just like get motion sickness. I don't know exactly what I told him. And so he basically wanted me to be on meclizine every day. And I wasn't too keen on that idea because meclizine knocked me out. Like, I had been taking it at that point for years because I've been taking it since I was like 10 or 11, which isn't the greatest, but to have it every single day I was not having it. And then he decided to try something else because I think I told him that sometimes I get headaches. It wasn't always. It wasn't every single time I had a dizzy spell I had a headache, and I don't know if that really, correlates. And then when I told him that, he was like, okay, we're gonna try Topamax. And I wanna, yeah, and so I'm just telling you this because of my experience. I'm not saying that it's not gonna work for you or whatnot if you're on any of these meds. I just wanna put a disclosure there that I am not a healthcare professional, and so don't think that if you have vertigo that you can fully like just listen to my medical advice, because like each situation is different. See your doctor, basically, is what I'm trying to say here. So basically he put me on Topamax. I tried it and I was willing to try it. There was a lot of side effects and I was nervous, and I'm more of a naturopath. If I can avoid taking medicine, I will. But at this point, obviously, I was willing to because it was slowly getting worse. And so I took Topamax maybe for just a day or two. Oh my goodness. I did not even last that long, simply because I knew you were going to feel worse, but simply because I just felt tingling and numbling in my hands, and I felt worse, that I was like, I'd rather feel the way I was before than take this with the meds and feeling this worse. And so yeah, so that was a no-go. And so I went back to college, back to school, feeling like hopeless of my situation, because I was like, I don't know what to do. I know I should have followed up with a neurologist, but I feel like he was also just like, when I saw him in the appointment, he just didn't really feel sure of what to do. You kind of just get like a feel of how the doctor is engaging with you and whatnot. I just feel like he just kind of didn't know what to do with me, and he was just kind of like testing. Granted, I know when you have vertigo, you have to test a bunch of drugs, but I just didn't feel assured from his options, I guess. But of course I listened. And so, yeah, I went back to school. I don't, still sick. I'm trying to think now we're at my junior year of college, and I'm still sick, and I don't remember. I think maybe from my first semester back, I'm pretty sure I was dizzy like my first week back, that I missed a few classes, which it wasn't my favorite. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did, and I didn't know what to do at that point. I just had to cope. And so I started to get super sick, and I think at this point, this was 2015, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't look for another doctor, I guess, in the state I was in at that point, until like the semester after. That year, after I saw the neurologist, I just didn't do anything about my situation because I just felt like it was kind of like a hopeless cause. No doctors have actually been helping me, which wasn't the best attitude, but honestly I felt helpless in this situation because I just didn't know where to turn next. And I was just trying to continue to take my meclizine as needed, take my ginger pills, do ginger stuff and remedies and whatnot. And I cut out a lot of things. Like I didn't drink to begin with, really. I didn't drink caffeine anymore after, actually, the year before, I was at a coffee shop with a friend and that I just met. I was just meeting with her, and the instant I took that sip of the coffee, my dizziness was so bad. And I know this is a ramble of like a bunch of stories, but I feel like this is just my journey, and so I want to share it with you guys. And I remember taking a sip of it. It was a loud coffee shop, and I didn't have my meds. And at this point, I think this is right after that midterm, maybe a few weeks after. And so I totally forgot to mention this, guys. And so I know this is like really scatterbrained, but I took a sip of it, I felt dizzy instantly, and I didn't have my meclizine, I didn't have anything but ibuprofen, so I took an ibuprofen, nothing was happening, and I was freaking out. I was like, I'm so sorry, I have to go, I'm feeling really dizzy, and of course, like, my instinct is like, drive myself home, just get home safely, and she offered to drive me, and I was like, no, I'll be fine, and then I was like, not able to walk straight, and I was like, you know what, okay, yeah, you can drive me. And so she did drive me home, and I felt horrible because she had a new car, and I puked. Thankfully, she had told me that she had like a cleaning, like a deal with the dealership to clean it on a regular basis, but I felt miserable. So like on the way home, when I was almost there, I had called my boyfriend at the time, he's my husband now, and he just lived down the street. And so he was walking down the alleyway of my house because she dropped me off in the back of my house, and I was trying to walk like to my door, and I was just like puking on the way up. Oh, it was a nightmare, guys. And I was just trying to make it to my bed, and I was like embarrassed that I had puked in her car, and I felt so bad, but my goal was to make it to my bed. I made it to my bed, thankfully, barely. I remember like standing in the kitchen for a little bit because I wasn't able to walk and I was puking. And so, yeah, I forgot about that story. So, how did I get that, a rabbit trail? Oh, because I cut out caffeine. That was the last day I had caffeine. So I haven't had caffeine for years. And so, and caffeine, like, at that point before then, like, sometimes it would trigger my vertigo, sometimes it wouldn't. It just, like, it was kind of like a gamble, drinking coffee. And so, at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm not drinking coffee anymore. So I cut caffeine. What else did I cut? No caffeine, no alcohol, which I didn't drink to begin with. So I cut that out, and that's how 2015, I continued to proceed that way. I just continued to get sicker, and my semester after that, anything that happened in 2015, I remember I was having spells, like, the semester after that, like, the later half of that year, seems like a blur. I got through the semester. I think some days I missed school, but I was able to function and still finish school with decent grades. The semester after Christmas break, so beforehand, I had gotten engaged that semester, and so I was planning a wedding and planning to move back home. And I remember being back, I decided to go back early for school to take a January term to try to finish faster, and just get credits out of the way. That didn't work out. I was pretty overwhelmed and anxious about the situation. I guess it was not necessarily my vertigo that was triggering me, but I was just very anxious and stressed out with wedding planning. And yeah, but I remember the first semester of like school, I missed like almost all classes but one maybe, because I was so dizzy. And I remember going to one class, and I had to leave because I was so dizzy, and my fiance ended up getting me from school, and I didn't even say anything. I emailed my teacher. I never even heard of her. She's probably like, this girl's just ditching my class. And so I ended up actually dropping that class because I was like, I need to cut my load this semester because I have to plan a wedding, do school, and take care of myself. And so decided to cut that, and my spells were just not the greatest. I was still able to function. I finished the semester, and I moved back home, and, I was able to function. Actually, on my wedding day, I had bad spells the night before my rehearsal dinner, and I think it was just nerves didn't help the situation. A month before the wedding, I wasn't sleeping. I was getting like 5 hours of sleep per night, and if you have vertigo, you know that you need hefty amount of sleep, because even with enough sleep, you're still gonna feel dizzy. And so the fact that I wasn't sleeping that much for like over a month was like so stressful, because I was moving back home halfway across the country, packing all of my stuff, and I just by myself, because my husband had to pack stuff too. I should have asked for more help. I just didn't think how strenuous it would be and how tiring I was. And on top of that, planning a wedding and finding a place to live, and it was just a very stressful situation. So the night of my rehearsal dinner, I was actually pretty dizzy. I had to leave early, and I was just throwing up, and I was just feeling sick, and maybe I was nervous for the next day. But the next day I got ready, I was relaxed, and when we were taking wedding pictures, right in the middle, lo and behold, dizzy spells. I was so nervous. I, of course, brought my meclizine. I took that, and granted, it was hot. It was a hot day too. I had a huge dress on. It wasn't like the heaviest wedding dress, but it was still pretty thick comparatively to like any type of clothing you'd wear on a hot day. And so, yeah, I sat in the cold in the air conditioning. I was really scared we weren't gonna be able to get married that day. Thankfully, thank God, like we were able to, and I was fine for the rest of the night. And yeah, everything went smoothly, and we got married, celebrated, and then a few days later left for our honeymoon. Our honeymoon, I wasn't dizzy at all. I had some spells, and I wasn't feeling the greatest because I was just exhausted. And I got sick on the way back and nauseated, and I would always get nauseated on the airplane to begin with, but I would use C-bands and stuff, and meclizine and whatnot. And so that was fine until like a few months after. And at this point, this is 2 years after the start of my nausea and like constant dizzy spells. And this is when it started to get even worse. Like, I was anticipating finishing my semester. I think I had a year left at this point before graduating, and I couldn't. Clearly, I still haven't. And it was really hard. I was, finishing up online and doing like directed studies with some professors. I think this first semester was just online. I know this is a ramble, guys. It's a really long video. And I was too sick, and I couldn't get up and out of bed most days, and it was just the start of it being really bad. And I was so down and anxious, and I couldn't work on homework because, I was in bed, but I was also having brain fog and I was dizzy, so it's not like I could have worked on homework. So I didn't finish all my classes, to be honest. I was able to get an extension, but I didn't finish all my classes that semester. And that same time, I don't know if I went to the doctor. I'm trying to think. I went back to my doctor. Nothing. And I didn't know what to do. I thought I wouldn't go to the doctor again because nothing was happening. And I forgot to mention that before I left the state that my school was in, I had seen a doctor about my vertigo, and she actually diagnosed me, and she said I had benign proximal positional vertigo. And that's all she said. She didn't give me medicines or do anything, or make me do the positions that resets your crystals and stuff. She didn't do anything with that, and so that was interesting. But she gave me nausea medicine because I told her how nauseous I was. So I forgot to mention that. So that was shortly a few months after we got married, and so nothing happened with that. I was just sick for a little bit. I didn't know what to do. So fast forward to still being sick, I just didn't know what to do. I think actually what had happened was that year I decided to finally see a new doctor, and my sister had seen a holistic doctor that I was like, you know what, maybe I should see him for my vertigo. So I did see him, and what he told me is that there's a lot of foods that inflame your body, and basically told me my body's inflamed. And so he wanted me to eat a no processed sugar diet and gluten-free, dairy-free, basically. And that's what I did, and I took all these supplements, and I took this detox smoothie, which was disgusting that he did. And despite all of it, I followed it for months. I did lose weight because I had to lose weight, and at this point I had gained so much weight because, one, I was less active. I couldn't really get out as much. I couldn't work out, and so I was losing weight, and I was still feeling dizzy though. It wasn't really helping, and so we were back at square one. I had seen him twice, and I didn't know what to do, guys. And so a few months passed by. I'm still feeling dizzy. I don't know what to do, just down because I just don't know what to do. No, I don't know what's next. This doctor, had the good intentions, but it wasn't working out. And so me and my husband were doing research, and we found that they do vestibular rehabilitation. And so I was like, okay, maybe this will help me out. We need to do something because I don't know what to do next. I already saw an ENT an ears, nose, and throat doctor. I saw a neurologist, and I saw a holistic doctor. I just don't know what to do next, and I honestly just didn't know. And so we looked it up, and my insurance covered it, and so we decided to do it. I had to get a referral from my previous doctor, my old doctor, and so they had a new doctor on staff at my doctor that I had grown up going to. They had a new doctor on staff, and I told them that I had vertigo for a while, that how debilitating it was, and actually she had thought it might be migraine related, but I was very weary of what she had to say. And I told her about vestibular rehabilitation. Of course, she knew about it, and so she gave me a referral because I needed a referral. And so that's when I started vestibular rehabilitation. So it's basically just physical therapy for people with vertigo. And so, because when you have vertigo and a vestibular disorder, you just have balance issues and whatnot, and you just get sick just looking left and right. I mean, that was my case. And so I did a consultation, and then I started physical therapy once. I think I started with twice a week, and then it went down to just once a week. And so that was good. It seemed like I was able to like get up and do stuff again, because honestly I was starting to feel so nauseous just looking left and right, up and down, that I barely was moving. And so this was just helping me like with just daily life skills that you would never think about. And so I would say that she helped me a lot until I think 2 months after my physical therapy. I went to every single like appointment. I was so dizzy I couldn't get up. And then she was like, she didn't diagnose me with anything, because I knew that a physical therapist would be able to diagnose me. That my cousin actually told me, he's a physical therapist, and he told me that I should go to physical therapy so they can diagnose you. And I was like, oh, okay. I just never thought about it. And that was just kind of like something he told me months back. And so me and my husband came across physical therapy. But she hadn't diagnosed me at that point. She had checked if I had benign proximal positional vertigo. She told me for sure I didn't have it. She tested me plenty of times, and she saw me like I was over the course of 5 months. And so I was obviously misdiagnosed when I was told that I had that. And so she just didn't know what it was. And so when I had such bad spells that I was just miserable for like a few days, she was like, you know, like seemed like you're improving, but you know, like this isn't normal. And so she was like, you need to see an ears, nose, and throat doctor again. And I was like, okay. I was like, I saw one in the past, like they didn't help me. They basically told me nothing was wrong. And so she gave me a referral to one, and he was actually very helpful. He was very kind. He said like everything's normal, but I don't want to tell you nothing's wrong with you, because obviously there's something wrong if you're not functioning like you normally can, if you can't do daily tasks and whatnot, because I just told him how sick I was. And so he did tests. He did VNG. He did which I did not like that test. It was rough. An MRI, MRA, like all that stuff. Everything was normal, thankfully. So basically, they were looking for like damage in your central nervous system, and so thankfully, I didn't have any of that. Nothing in my brain or anything, which was great. But I was also like, where are the answers? Like, what do we do from here? And so he gave me a referral to a doctor that specializes specifically in dizziness. And when I was doing research on like vestibular therapy and whatnot, like I had come across this doctor, I just didn't know how hard he would be to get into. And so he gave me a referral, which was great, and that was the start of like me getting some answers. I know, it's very long, guys. And so I think it took me, this doctor, like, it would take like 3 months to see him, but thankfully there was an opening. I think someone canceled, so I was able to go like a few days after calling them, and I filled out like a pretty extensive questionnaire of like my symptoms and whatnot. It like took me 2 hours to fill out, which was kind of crazy because I never filled out something like that intense as far as like before going to the doctor. And before going, they already like told me these are the tests you want to do, or like the doctor wants to do before or after you get there. And so I had brought like my files as like not transcripts, would it be transcripts? I don't know, like whatever tests I already had, so that can eliminate doing them again. And he wanted to do like a rotary chair test on me, like some other sensitivity test, but based on like right when I saw him, like he can tell, and based on the symptoms I had, that I had migraine associated vertigo. Because I forgot to mention actually, guys, that when I did vestibular therapy, they actually, like, just to like see my eyes, they like put these goggles on you and they kind of just like see what your eyes do, if that makes sense. And so this is what this doctor did actually too, just to see like what my eyes do. You have to eyes do, like if they wander off, which they used to wander off, is, I guess that kind of helps in diagnosing what kind of vertigo, I guess. I don't know how it does and whatnot, but he told me he thinks that I have migraine associated vertigo. And I was like, what? I've never had a migraine. I've had headaches with my vertigo, but I was like, migraine associated vertigo. But honestly, this doctor was very knowledgeable, and I actually like trusted what he had to say, and like was very knowledgeable, very assuring. My husband was with me at that appointment. He told me these are the reasons why you're sensitive to smell, you're sensitive to light, and just your age and whatnot, and just all these facts, because he tested me. Obviously, he's like, you don't have benign proximal positional vertigo, and just basically kind of telling me what he thought I had, and he was like, thankfully with this kind of vertigo, this is the only one you can treat with meds. And I was like, oh my goodness, like this is great. Like for years, like I just didn't think there was any medicine for dizziness, which technically there really isn't. And so if it's migraine associated, you can play with meds, but the trick is that it's going to be hard to find something that really works. And so what he did, he told me that these are the list of foods you should eliminate before we try meds. And so that list of food was coffee or alcohol, caffeine, which I have already eliminated. It was chocolate, which stinks because I love chocolate. Like I ate chocolate all the time. And so that was really hard. And what you think I would have eliminated it sooner, because it had like small amounts of caffeine, and so I eliminated chocolate. So he wanted me to eliminate chocolate, nitrates and sulfates, MSG, which is monosodium glutamate. I think that was it. And then he wanted me to take calcium magnesium pills. And so he gave me a list. He was like, try these for a few weeks, like 2 or 3 weeks, and then like we'll talk about the meds. And he gave me a list of meds that we would try, from anti-seizure medicine, antidepressants, like just all these different meds to treat. Like they were categorized and made for something else, but they were used to treat migraines, if that makes sense. So out of like the whole list he had given me, he chose 3, and I told him that I had gained so much weight that I don't want to take meds that were gonna essentially make me gain more weight. And so there was 3 that he decided. And so I told him that I've eaten clean before and like avoided all these foods, and so most likely me and my husband were like, we're most likely going to have to take meds. And so a few weeks later we started the med, and of course I was so nervous because, like I said to you guys, if I don't have to take medicine, I won't. But at this point, how debilitating this was, I had no choice. I had to take medicine. And I felt like I'd done everything natural that I possibly could, and nothing was changing. And so I started to take this medicine, and so with this medicine, I had to slowly taper on a full dosage, because with my vertigo, I'm just super sensitive to meds. And so I was super sensitive to this med. The first week, I had to like split the capsule, and they were like little beads. But the first week, I remember having just like miserable headaches, and second week as well. And so basically it took technically 3 weeks to get to the full dosage. It took me 6 weeks, I think, because my body was so sensitive. Once it started working. It was starting to help me a lot. Then I was like, oh, I can start my internship. Which I think I was doing my internship, and I could finish school, like do a full load. No. That didn't quite help. I actually saw him a follow-up appointment. I told him I was feeling great, and I felt like I was just in a funk, at least these past couple of weeks. But he could tell that I looked different, I felt different. He could just tell. And he's like, if anything changes, contacted me. I haven't seen him since, actually, and I was fine for months, but I was still feeling dizzy, and I didn't know, like, if this medicine just took time to like fully function. The medicine I took was actually venlafaxine, and I'm just gonna say it. And so it is an antidepressant that, yeah, that works for migraines, I guess. And so I thought it was working well until I was slowly getting like numbness in my legs and my hands, and it was slowly getting worse to the point where like I couldn't get out of bed, and I was fine dizziness wise, but I just had numbness and hand pain all over my body. And my mother-in-law was convinced I had fibromyalgia because she actually has fibromyalgia. And so I decided that, you know what, I need to go to the doctor for this, and hence I got a new family doctor. I know, guys, it took forever to find one, right? And I told myself, you know what, I need to find a different doctor. And I found one close by, and she is great. I saw her, and she did blood tests and whatnot. I was very vitamin D deficient, which I have been in the past. And she had mentioned that she thinks the reason why I have been having this numbness and tingly feeling is because of the venlafaxine, because she had a similar drug prescribed to her patients that gave them like kind of like electricity feeling and kind of like the symptoms I had been explaining to her. And she's like, I think we should get you off of that to try something for your vertigo, because she was saying that the patients I sent to see this doctor for dizziness, they usually are fine, and you are still experiencing like debilitation from it. And so I was like, okay. And I was excited, but at the same time, like, trying a new medicine gives me anxiety because it's just like a new realm of feeling the different kind of dizzy. I don't know if that makes sense. So that definitely gave me anxiety. And so I switched from venlafaxine, I tapered off of that, to verapamil, which was a beta blocker, and I didn't, yeah. So, and that was the next med that my neurologist, the guy who was helping me with my dizziness, had wanted me to try next. I told him like what my family doctor had said, and they told me that they hadn't had that experience with any of the patients and like the hundreds of prescriptions he's prescribed, but he's willing to work with me. And so I listened to my doctor, and I really trusted her, because right after I met with her, she spent like 20 minutes talking to me, and she seemed like genuinely interested in finding a solution so that I can live normally again, which was very refreshing and very encouraging, because I hadn't had that before. Like, this dizzy doctor was great. He's been great, and she's been great. And so I hadn't had that hope that I was going to get better. And so we tried the verapamil. Oh, that was a nightmare, tapering off of venlafaxine to verapamil. So venlafaxine definitely helped me as far as like motion-wise goes, looking up and down, looking left and right, like that helped me with my motion. Verapamil did not, at least for the first couple days. And verapamil is actually, so venlafaxine was an antidepressant. Verapamil was actually a blood pressure medicine. And so that's what I guess they're supposed to work. I don't know what the science is behind it, but that's what my doctor wanted me to go on. And so I am on verapamil right now, and I was transitioning, and that was a nightmare the first week. Like, I couldn't get out of bed. I can barely balance and get out. So that was really rough. And so I wasn't convinced that I was working, because I just had spells, like bad dizzy spells still, and I still have them right now. And so that's where I am right now, guys. I am on it right now. I don't know if it's going to be time to try that third med. It's been a year since I've seen that doctor. I saw him back in January. I've seen him twice. And so honestly, I'm at a point where I don't know if I'm going to see him soon. I probably most likely will, just because I still can't function in life. I've had a lot of brain fog. I'm still dizzy every day, guys. And sometimes it's elevated with my menstrual cycle, but honestly, it's been bad. Like, this whole summer has been horrible. Like, I had dizzy spells. So like the beginning of the summer, I was transitioning from venlafaxine to verapamil, and that was like a horrible dizzy spell. And then a few weeks later I had bronchitis, literally had bronchitis, and I was sick for the whole summer. And then just struggling with that on top of vertigo, like having vertigo almost like every day. And granted, like the spells are not as bad every single day, was just rough, guys. And like these past few weeks I've just been waking up in the mornings, like my dizziness is just horrible for a few days. Thankfully some days it wears off, but it's just been really rough, guys. And I just really wanted to share my story with you because it's not solved yet. So I have a diagnosis. I have migraine associated vertigo, and that took about like how many years? 13 years it took me to have an actual diagnosis of what kind of vertigo I had, because before then, like, vertigo was just a symptom, and like sometimes people have vertigo because they have a tumor, or they have vertigo because they have allergies, but mine is migraine associated vertigo. And I have a diagnosis, and we're just in the process of finding out what works. And it's been a year of like good healthcare and doctors working with me, and we haven't quite found like manageable medicine. I mean, we're in the process. So I'm continuing to see my doctor and like maybe changing my diet further. I just don't know what's next, guys. And so I just wanted to share my journey with you guys, and I wanted to encourage you guys if I did. I know it was super long, my story, and I plan to do more videos on how I live with vertigo every day, what I use to manage, how do I cope with being dizzy like all the time, literally all the time. And so yeah, guys, I really wanted to share this video, and I know I put it off, and I really didn't want to get emotional about it. But last night I happened to Google. I was like, how come no one knows about this? And guys, like, I look normal, but I have a balance disorder. I have like something wrong with my vestibular system. And I was like, how do people not know? Like, why isn't there like something like awareness spreading? And so I found out that there's it's Balancing Awareness Week, and I didn't know it existed. So it was like a flamingo, and so I'm probably gonna make that in my thumbnail, maybe, we'll see. And so there's an association that does research on vestibular and just doing awareness. So I've kind of come across this website here and there, just reading about migraine associated vertigo. And so yeah, guys, I decided that they were encouraging you to take a picture with a flamingo, but I actually decided to share my story with migraine associated vertigo instead, and I'm gonna go ahead and hashtag it, and I'm gonna go ahead and continue to share videos of this on my channel, and I'm actually gonna call it Victory Through Vertigo. And yeah, guys, I hope you guys enjoy this video. Comment down below. Go ahead and direct message me on my Instagram. It's complicated. And yeah, or just feel free to comment down below your story, and I hope I was a little bit of encouragement to you, to help you get through your vertigo spells, or to help a family member cope through this. And so there is hope. There is good doctors out there. It's been a rough journey. It's been a long journey. And so yeah, guys, until next time, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.